Hello, 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 everyone. Wanted to talk to some person from California who had some questions on Instagram, but not sure if he actually could connect actually because he was having troubles. So I decided just not to skip this day and talk to my subscribers because you guys might have some questions and I wasn't answering questions for very long. So let's see if some people can connect and ask some questions. Any questions? Hi, Ryan. Any questions are welcome. Okay. I wanted to maybe show some, um, I would say, background so it won't be busy. It won't have any sound, but would be kind of good if something will play on the background. Okay. Hi, Arjun. Hello from South America. Yeah, South America is a very interesting place. I'd like to go to South America. They have a bunch of stuff to check. Yes, Ryan, ask your question. I would like to hear questions. Hello from France. How do you say bienvenue? I was learning French in Russian school, in Russian high school, but it was like not very good quality because it was second foreign language, and so nobody was actually learning it because everybody was learning the main the main language was English, and so I would like to learn French a lot more, but at that time, yeah, Napoleon was my one of my favorite persons, and this actual place that he was actually viewing the Moscow when he was trying to reach the troops of Russians. Okay, let's see. What's the story with the maps dated in the 1500s that show Florida and California cities and a city called Chicago? Well, what I can say about maps, I had a certain video about maps. If you haven't watched it, then I'll briefly explain what that video was about. I'm highly suspicious on the quality of all those maps that we see on the internet and even the originals. If you've seen the originals, you probably um, realize that very interesting and new terms could be found, like some certain spellings that are like changed and so on. So, but the main point is that if you wanna actually store the map, you have to concern some um, certain conditions for this map actually to hold on for such long time, like hundreds and hundreds of years. And how do they store all these documents right now? What they actually do is keep them in certain temperatures and certain, you know, closed facilities which nobody can enter, and only a special pass and probably reservation prior to the visit, and so on. So you have to actually know what you're looking for, and they will give you these enormous amounts of paper, and each paper will be folded very carefully. They will have gloves on, so nothing will be like no sweat or something, no hair, nothing. And those maps are really, if you've seen, Putin was shown some of those Tartarian maps also with this type of conditions when everybody was like very careful showing those books to him. So what I'm saying is you have to have real big expensive procedures and a budget to store all those maps, to store them in good condition. And they were stored in good condition. As you can see, most of them are just in perfect condition. And what the officials say is that most of those maps are like from 17, 1600s and 1500s and so on. So like nothing adds up actually, because they didn't have those facilities back then. uh, Moisture, block, all this stuff can actually um, eat the document, eat the map, and so on. So I don't believe in those old maps actually. I think all of them are edited or made up just to certain narrative. So we have to be highly suspicious to those maps. Okay. Do you feel that Tartar was an empire? Well, I was saying a bunch of times, Tartaria is mining wasteland, which was called Great Tartary. And actually, if you find the the people on the map, the people in the ancient book with like Genghis Khan and all this stuff, like there's a bunch of ancient also documents which are stored so perfectly, by the way. Also, you find that they were called Hans, Great Han. So probably not empire, and they were not calling themselves empire, and they were not empire because they knew that the only empire was the empire that was prior to them, and it was called Empire of Rosh. And so, like, that's a big mistake that people actually think that empire is like empire, and no, this is wrong. Actual name is Imperium, Imperium, Imper. So, and it's empire, just the pronunciation in English. So you have to like cross check each time you want to talk about the terms and stuff like this. So um, every time you're gonna be having problems if you don't do that, and you're gonna be wrong. Okay. So there was only one empire, and it was prior to Tartaria, and you can't say that um, Tartaria was 100% empire. This is not true. It was just the hugest piece of it. Okay. And people trying to call Tartaria everywhere, like, I would say it's just wrong, literally wrong. I was, saying that maybe it had territories in South America, maybe, but maybe it just was just the remainings of previous empire, the real empire. Okay. And people always were misled with this Roman Empire and Holy Roman Empire, because Holy Roman Empire was the empire was created in 1200s, and in official version. So I think it's closer to our time than they tell us. And I think this is where the breakup was. Like, one piece was Tartaria and another piece was Holy Romans. Okay. And the Holy Romans were winning and beating Tartarians, and grabbing land from them each time they having wars. And at certain moment it stopped, and that moment was like Napoleon's wars, like when Napoleon and Russians invaded Tartaria and actually um, tried it to capture Moscow. They did it well. Russian troops were like not even protecting Moscow, they left Moscow. This is what the first video was about actually. And so I don't believe that story that Russians were fighting French. Probably they were chasing them, but not fighting. And they were chasing them because French screwed up in Moscow, and Moscow got burned and all this stuff. So, um, so it went wrong. Okay, because they had documents. They were even communicating during the war, sending each other letters, thanks, and like happy birthdays, I would say. So it doesn't seem a war. between those sides. But the officials say it was a war between Russians and French, and Russians kicked them ass. But something does it up. I wasn't on the main battlefield, and I didn't feel that such big amount of troops can actually fit in that field. They say like 200,000 people were fighting from each side. Like, I can be wrong in certain, but it doesn't look that way. If you go actually there, you find out that, like, maybe 10,000 troops at each side can fit there, but no more. Okay, so mudflat was worldwide. Well, mudflat is definitely not that most of the guys that I meet these days is. People think that mudflat is something like, let me just pause this one, and okay, let's do another. Okay, let's do this one. As you can see, this my Facebook saved stuff, and here's the example of, let's see, this is a flash flood, and most of the people think mud flood is a flash flood. No, as you can see, this is like a top of something, top of the hill, top of the mountain, and all this water and mud, actually comes from the top to the bottom. And actually, yes, it looks kind of the mud that is filled the area, but actually, mud flood is a lot slower and is not as destructive. It probably will not even move all those buildings. It's just gonna fill the area like the swimming pool. Maybe it had some speed on some certain turns and curves if it just landscapes, topic, but it's a lot more dense than just water flood, and it's not as fast. Let's see. Um, so maybe this one. Well, this one also is a slide towards the ocean or the sea, whatever. So it's not the mud flood. It's just a slide of um, unstable soils and landscape, which was unlucky to be on that soil. Also devastating, because most of the soils are clay and mud, is what I can see around my place. Everything is clay and mud. So where's all this mud come from? So it's filling the area, is what I think. It's filling the area with let's see. It's filling the area like a swimming pool from a certain source, and it could be very slow, but rather fast. Okay, so you can't just run away from it, but it's not moving the buildings. Okay, let's see the next question. So why is not worldwide? Because it's just targeted. So you cannot say it's just simultaneous and worldwide. No, because in that case you follow to this tsunami something, or maybe, I don't know, flash flood, global flash flood, which is impossible at all, because you cannot have mud everywhere from out of nowhere and all these buildings are totally safe, right? So it doesn't fit it up. So it's not a global catastrophe. It's a certain technology to reset the area from the previously previous population, is what I've been saying from the day one. So it's just the reset technology, and one of them, because the war is also reset technology. Okay, maybe you name it. Pandemics is a reset technology. Okay, Let's see. Why are these buildings everywhere if the mud flood is local? It's not local. It's not global. It's not local. It's the technology to reset the area. If you do the reset, you do it step by step, okay? You don't do it worldwide, right? It's impossible. So you fool the people around and just, create some maybe legend or story, maybe do a war to cover something up and grab the attention towards wars. And on the same side, you may be, conquering South America, by the way. Who knows what was happening back then, like in 1700s, 1600s, 1900s. Official history doesn't say at all what was actually happening. Why didn't they start finding those ancient constructions only in 19th century? Okay, like in Mexico and so on. So I mean, those huge constructions in the jungle, they're probably visible, which people were running around for centuries, right? But nobody was clearing those stuff up. So that all leads up to that this mudflood technology is was maybe some period of 19th century. That's why I was saying that it could be from 1820s to 1850s on official timeline, which could be actually edited for us. And we like watch the documents and we see like 1830s, but actually it's not 1830s of our timeline, it's 1830s of their timeline. So we don't actually know how many years did they swallow, and so nobody actually knows. Okay, it's just coincidental evidence analysis that we do right now. And I don't actually like the people just getting those theories about 1700s 1800s, because we haven't solved the problem of 1900 yet. We go into those edited periods, maybe those 1500s or I 5530 is just a made up edited information, so which is false to call it that was back then or back then. We don't know actually. Let's see. And buildings are everywhere because it was one empire, as I was saying in the beginning. So that is antique empire. They didn't call it, they call it Greco-Roman classical, but in general, it was always called antique. Okay, why antique? Where's those ants? Ants? I don't see ants. Okay, and then we go to Greek language and we find out that an is a man or a person, human. Also, an, titan, giant, and we have an everywhere. Um, so those ants disappeared somewhere. I don't think so. I don't think so. I think we just been sold so many bullshit, and with this divide and conquer strategy that they performed since the 19th century. And actually back in that it was always like that. It was always like that. It was always divide and conquer. No, it wasn't like that. It couldn't be a lot better order before. And now they're trying to sell us that you want a old world order, which was one magnificent global empire, that we're doing it right now. Look at it. We're doing one global magnificent empire, brave new world. Okay, they're selling this to us. That's not right. Actually, what we had before is different. Let's see. Was Tartarian civilization formed by humans and giants? I was saying always that we had breeding technologies, guys. Breeding technologies. So just think about it. We could have made giant, we could have made whatever. So that is not wasn't the problem actually. But like not those 500 feet giant, I don't know, because there was no feeding base for those kind of creatures. So probably was like 10, 12 feet people that were created for some certain purposes before, or maybe they started to exploit the small ones, because we see small people also on the pictures with along with the big ones, and it's not the kids. Okay. Soil liquefaction, plasma discharge. No, soil liquefaction looks different. If you take a look at liquefaction videos that I've made, you find out that liquefaction doesn't work. Okay, because it makes the walls collapse and lean and collapse. So we don't see that on the buildings. I don't see any collapsed buildings. Those buildings are pretty much safe. Plasma discharge also doesn't work. You have to go to the channels that talk about melted buildings. It's over there. They talk about something. Maybe you can ask them questions about plasma discharge. Maybe they're missing something. Maybe you know something. Okay. Atlantis extracted energy from ether, caused Phaeton that created all deserts. Phaeton is now the moon, and will return to Mount Mirror Phoenix, moonfolk coming. Perhaps you have to, you know, perhaps you have your own YouTube channel where you talk about that. But I don't actually feel that way. I don't feel that ether had enough power to generate all this stuff. Right now, we have observable and repeatable, tested source of energy, which is called atmospheric electricity. And it depends on the height and the devices that you use. That's why they could have used spires to harvest and therefore harness this energy. But was it ether? We don't know. What we know right now is called atmospheric electricity. So I highly suggest everybody to use the terms that we can actually touch and check it out, because when you talk about ether, you'd probably also in some fantasy melted buildings go to those places, and probably they will discuss ether. I don't know about ether. Ether is something that is highly suspicious for me, at least. Although some devices could be using so-called ether. Okay. Government means mind control in Latin. Oh, order is also government, right? And order is what we had in the Tartarian times. They called it Mongol Tartarian conquering, and it was called Arda in Russian. I will check Russian, English, maybe some other languages that can, be useful, and it always finds the right answer. So what they want actually is the military state, or Arda is military state, is when certain civilian communities pay 1/10 of their profit to this military state for it to be, resourceful and continue uh, its, to its goal. But actually, it was pretty stable. What I can say, it was pretty stable, and it was, as what they say, it was pretty, good for emerging of economy and trade. That's when they had this new Silk Way stuff. So probably the control of these trade routes and all this spice and goods that were flowing from Asia to Europe, and robbing all those caravans and so on. By the way, caravan also relates me to this karma, crown, corona stuff that I was talking about, because caravans were always robbed, and it was the you know as what they say. So bunch of pirates and a bunch of bandits were robbing sea and land caravans. Has this capability fallen into the hands of those who do not have our best interests? I've been talking about Nags and those creatures that we call parasites in Russia. Somebody is naming them reptilians, but no, they are not exactly reptilians. They're just humanoid creatures. I was saying we used to breed a bunch of stuff, and others also did it. So we're not alone. And, you know, to conquer us, those others, outsiders, we call them Marine Kingdom, on Navi world, and different texts. It's called different, but we can find it as Navi world. Also, Atlantis, sunk Atlantis could also be related to that Navi world stuff. So probably it was just those Marine Kingdom outposts, or perhaps Atlantis is just a story to cover up some cities to just started to disappear at certain point when these wars started, because you have to explain it to the shippo, why did you lose a war or something, and you make some story of some natural disaster, I don't know, or God's will or something, which is also a non-proven fact. You cannot explain, you cannot prove that unless you've seen it your own eyes, or maybe you talk to God. I don't know. I haven't talked to God yet. So were they actually those knocks are actually concerning our interest? Yes, they were concerning our interest. You know how they concern our interests. You can visualize it these days, how they concern our interests, how they actually rob and doing the same stuff they were doing way back in the days. Mine and rob, mine and rob. Nothing actually changed. So, and those technologies that we actually obtained before, they also did use those technologies. Maybe they were a little smarter than we are. So that's why they succeeded and we don't actually succeed anymore as well as we used to. Religion is a franchise concept. Yes, I agree. It's just a way to control the smart people and put them in some certain instruction list, and make them regret when they think that they missed the point or missed something or even violated a law or amendment. I don't know. I think it's just like that. So I don't think churches were even mentioned in the Bible. And I don't think that Adam and Eve were first human creatures, because it's even said that some human creatures were already created on day 6 and they were created on day 7. So why didn't anyone actually read the Bible? I don't know. And a bunch of things there. We can talk about it one day. I don't, I'm not actually in the Friday. I don't actually in the mood of criticizing Bibles and stuff. But in Russia, we don't actually believe in so much stuff. Like as we are not as religious as you think, although um, they make us look some Christian country. We don't actually go to church. Yeah, I can say that because communism erased that habit from our behavior, and the new people, they don't go to church. The new guys, new teenagers and so on, they don't go to church. So only those who uh, imitate that behavior from what they grandparents were, when they was actually allowed. And when communists were in regime, nobody was actually going to church also. So they, as you know, a bunch of churches are not churches. What I think they could be atmospheric capacitors and condensator generators. I don't actually, know how to explain this technology, but a bunch of people do. You just have to look up for it. I'm not a physicist, but all these tests were already made. The width of a walls and all this stuff, and red brick capacitor, technology was also presented by the scientists. I had a video about that. So we had a bunch of churches, a bunch of cathedrals in Russia, and they all not doesn't look like they were created for Russian climate because they don't have a heating system at all. And we are having a bunch of cold months in Russia, more than you. And so it's kind of cold not to have a heating system, right? Especially in those brick constructions. Almost all mythologies contain the flood story. Yeah. I was talking about 1861 California Great Flood as a cover story. And there was a bunch of those big floods in 19th century and the beginning of 20th century when the water was actually, covering to the second store. But, you know, all this information about Great Flood is not doesn't hold any water when we, combine it with the narrative that we already know, that we already think that is correct or highly likely correct, I would say. As what Fomenko and Nosovsky studies also are. They don't mention mud flood at all in 19th century. Nothing happened. Nothing happened. So that's why, yeah, I can say that flood is possible. Why not? We've seen tsunamis, in Thailand and stuff. So why is it something, you know, unexplainable? Yes, it could be. It could be a great flood. It could be a flood in the Black Sea, right? Because Black Sea was isolated from the Mediterranean Sea. Black Sea was the center of antique civilization. Black Sea and the northern shore of Black Sea was always populated uh, by Greeks, Jews, Slavs, and many other tribes, and Caucasian heaven, I would say, because Caucasus is over there, and all these biblical stories are kind of related to Turkey and Black Sea region also. And on one of the books, which is right now is called Apocryph, is being excluded from the Bible. On one of those, it's called the Saint Andrew's book. You know that Saint Andrew, the guy who was fishing when he saw Jesus walking on water with his brother Peter. Saint Andrew said, wrote in his book that Jesus said to his students that don't go to the north. Those pagans on the north, they are sinless. They don't need your studies. Go to the south and to the east. And that book was excluded from the Bible. I don't know why, because probably Russian Orthodox Church asked for it. I don't know. Actual final edit of Bible was in 19th century also, so it's not a coincidence, right? Could the devil be real and has taken over some people like Bill Gates and Joe Biden? I've been saying that I have a strong theory that something could be, somebody could be messing with this mm, biological digital programming, and those androids could be like looking like real human beings, could be reprogrammed and programmed and have a longer life. and then the original versions. So devil, what devil is in Russian? We saw devil as some horned creature, right? Some horns, and there was a god in Slavic mythology who also was depicted with horns, with and his name was Wales, Velis. I strongly believe that Wales and Scotland um, are somehow connected to this god also, because they had druidic culture, and Velis was the god of um, forest, animals, and underworld also. Some people relate him to underworld because, but I saw another version that underworld was ruled by god named Radagast. Some people know me as Radagast in Russia also, because they gave me this second name. I didn't know they gave me that name, but well, I have to take that second name actually. So Radagast was wearing a lion head sometimes. So he had a duck also and a lion head. So, and he was actually guarding the underworld from those demons that were set in prison there for different scenes, and he was taking measures for them not to escape. Okay, so in this and or that explanation, if that would be Velis or that would be Radagast or whoever, I would say that Christians could pull those ancient explanations and ancient gods in some certain collective um, god, which they call devil, right? And so maybe it was a fallen angel, because they start with fallen angels, right? And we have this Titan with God battle also in Greek mythology, where those titans fall from the sky and so on. So could be related, right? So I'm not actually in the mood to for this talk right now, but I think devil and those monsters that live in another world is one thing, right? And those creatures that live in our world is another thing. So, like, I would say we were all united at some certain point and maybe helping each other and, you know, guarding each other. And those creatures that were taller than we are, like, giants or maybe semi-gods, demigods, titans, whatever you call, they could be helping us and protecting us from somebody. But once they failed, uh, we lost control of this world and let all those demonic creatures, those underworld creatures, those marine kingdom parasite creatures, nagis, snakes, and so on. It's also in the Bible, like who is actually Lilith and all the snakes that was, actually um, messing around in paradise. We don't know. Those creatures call themselves, in Russian Bible, they say, we were ashamed. Then we knew that we are nags, nagi, or we are naked. We even have the same word, nagi, naked. Naked means skin, right? So those creatures are naked skin creatures, and snakes are looking this way. So it could be serpent humanoids, because nagis look like serpent humanoids, or reptilian looking. I don't know. We can call them whatever, but they have naked skin and they call themselves Nagi. And to be Nagi is to be naked in Russian. And so I think I answered the question this somehow. So I don't think that we have to call devil the gods that we used to trust, but we have to focus on those parasites that actually took control of our world, those demonic creatures, because what they do is They do human sacrifices. That's why we don't like him, because we don't like that crap, right? And each time they established this parasitic control, we took care of those people. We erased those people from the map, right? And once we screwed up, actually, as what I can see, maybe that was a flood that helped them. I don't know. Maybe there was some reset type of technology that they started to use, apparently. Who knows when we lost it? But ancient texts that I've been, trying to, relay on, they say that they actually told us that would be some certain period that you're gonna be controlled by those parasitic creatures, and that certain period is we experience it right now. So this is now. And what is the future? The future is that we're gonna find out the answer about that in a general, you know, in a mass that can actually not only talk on the internet and be a couch experts, in a mass that be critical to change something. Uh, no examples actually how that can be looking like, but that's a whole different story. Let's see what's so many questions, guys. Thanks. Queen Victoria built an observatory to mark the sacred spot of the Melbourne Shrine of Remembrance. She also has earmarked it has to be new religion. Yes, they may creating. I've heard about new religion that they created. They kind of mixing all this stuff together under this Abrahamic paradigm. So perhaps that would be new religion pretty much soon. As long as they take control, they can do whatever. King James Bible Version 1611 Original Law Book. Well, I have read a bunch of versions. I'm not a native speaker in English, so using those ancient words and you always have to understand them. If you don't understand them, there's different situation. That's why I compare different books and different translations. And when you see those translations, you understand what this or that ancient word actually meant, and they don't translate it right. Okay, they don't translate it right. They pick the wrong one. Once you have a Google, once you use Google Translate, you find out that one word can have certain different translations and meanings, and different words explaining the same thing, called synonyms, right? And they pick the wrong synonym and lose the original definition because of that translation, because originally Bible, as what they say, was written on Aramaic language, then it was translated to Greek, then it was translated to, because Greeks were Romans, they were the only Romans close to that side of Mediterranean, and a bunch of Christians were Greeks, and some went to Latin language, right? And only then, after Latin and Greek, Bible developed into the local languages, as what the official history says. So I doubt that it wasn't edited before King James version appeared to become, what as a King James version. Churches are machines, but so is most everything. But I get you, a specialized machine suited to certain tasks. Yes, and multi-purpose machines could be also used in a street, in a street area, because uh, street is like a community spot, so people could have uh, different technologies mixed in one device, as what we have right now. So ancients weren't that stupid, that's for sure. Let's see. Even if you have a correct translation, why should we take it as authoritative source of history? Because language is a decryption of everything we know. Okay, like we use slang words which are not actually meaning of the words that we pronounce, and that's why we lose the original definition and the root, the core root of that word. And when you read the ancient literature, you you know switch you're switched to your mentality, your current mentality, and your understanding of those words. And even comments are also comments of those ancient books could be wrongly interpreted. Okay, so that could be interesting to know a bunch of languages. And some people can learn a bunch of languages, just having time for that. Yes, I totally agree with Bill. Have you seen autodidactic video on with Sonia and Crystal Cities? No, I haven't. English is French, Spanish, Germanic, Latin, and Greek. It's what they tell you. It's what they tell you. But actually, how it was, we don't know. Okay. Um, Inglings, Inglings are the so-called priests or guardians of the ancient knowledge. That's the ancient word, England. And England is the land where those ancient priests were living. And you know them by the other name, which is Druids. And of course, the Druids were also brainwashed at a certain point and started to act friendly to the government and so on. So I highly doubt that they left any of the ancient knowledge to current modern secret societies of Druids, right? But anyways, we have to understand that Scots is Scottish, for example, is also related to um, cattle, because in Sanskrit, Scot is cattle. So could be Scottish cattle. Who knows? Ask Scots if they have any cattle. Okay, and Wales, they have this dragon on and so many symbols like a bunch of cities and castles which start with car. If you have watched my videos about car, corona, and so on, you might understand that this is all related. And they even have meetings in those places, these crown members. And they have this Prince of Wales, which is right now currently the next monarch. We already know he has named Charles, which is also Carl, because Charles is Carl. Oh, so um, they like this. They like this, and so probably dragon is just snake serpent type of creature that has this origin from the Asia, and maybe related to China somehow, right? And maybe related to those who are right now financing China, right? Why is China so fast and emerging? I've made a video in about 1971. At a certain point, China start to emerge, start to be interested, interesting for everybody again. Although nobody was even, letting them into the United Nations till 1971. So a bunch of coincidence, a bunch of coincidence. Philip, what started your question of the official narrative? Um, I've been, always critical. That's why I started my career as um, economic crimes department officer. I was investigating corruption which is also related to core, crown, and all this stuff. Cartels. So all this stuff is related. So I started to investigate a bunch of corruption cases. I was young, I was, naive. And then at a certain point, I understand when I became a head of department, I understood that how all this stuff is actually organized and how all this order of, police regime, which is actually available in every country, because I've been in some countries and I also seen it. So this regime is right now, you see it right now, it's available in all these countries. No country had escaped of this regime. Back then it was, I would say, analog regime. Right now it's digital regime. That's why. Um, so I understood that nothing is really working without corruption. And that probably made me change my mind. It changed my way of living. So I switched from that job to digital marketing, which was very popular back in 2009. So I quit and started learning that area. And parallel to that, I was also learning all these ancient books and information, like Book of Enoch. I was reading all this stuff about all this new popular and alternative information about, who was constructing pyramids and so on. All these Tartaria maps were very popular in Russia in those days. Fomen Konasovsky. So all this stuff mixed together, and certainly I was already questioning everything at that certain point. So it was like, it wasn't like immediate or spontaneous. It was like, step by step, some type of situation. So probably I would say, as I was started to grow older, most of my audience, in fact, is like 25 plus. So maybe at the age of 25, I've already stepped over that, level of information when I trust official narrative, and I started questioning. And when I actually found out the cases, like when they poured concrete in the ancient tunnel, what my friend's store, the story that they actually excavated basement in their already sub basement floor. They started to excavate the basement and got into the brick tunnel. They were astonished. It was really big, like 4 horsemen could ride in that tunnel. And they had a flashlight. They saw it was very, distant one. And they went to museum, so they can call somebody who would tell them what to do, because it was commercial property. And they had to have some specialists there actually to organize stuff and manage all this situation, this issue. And so they went to the museum, and the museum workers said, "Okay, we'll go." So they ran to that shop. There was a weapons store in sub basement floor of Kolchak residence. Kolchak was admiral of Russian Empire, who created my city a capital of his rebel part of the country during the Civil War in 1918. Well, anyways, so he had this residence, and they had sub basement floor with the windows in the ground, and they were selling weapons. They started to dig the basement and find out that tunnel there. So all those museum specialists came very fast, and they called to somebody, like in maybe in half an hour after they went to museum, a huge truck, concrete truck with this horse, I don't know, this pipe, came, and 2 people with it's called Russian KGB, it's called FSB. They showed their IDs and said, like, step out of this facility, we're gonna handle it. And so they poured concrete into that hole that they excavated into the tunnel, all truck concrete, and said like return in a couple of days, locked the door, sealed it, stamped it, so they didn't open the door for 3 days, and they returned in 3 days. Concrete was already solid, so no basement. Okay, so that's probably one of those igniting events that ignited me the most. And also I was walking to my boss's meetings each evening when I was a small boss. I went to this big boss meetings each day near that historical museum of Rubel, which was one of the most, most impressive evidence with these windows uh, and doors underground that were excavated during the pavement and reconstruction of that building. And that was like number two. And also the stories about people running around in those tunnels and those ancient facilities and finding all this, undergrounds and all this mystery probably ignited me the most. Okay. They lie to you about your country and then turn it upside down and tell you that there are two magnetic poles and the true and geo you live in on the old Africa, your South America is North Africa. Okay, no comments. Like a city disk, the center hole is the North Pole and we live in the middle and the Antarctic runs along the rim. Yes, there's a bunch of interesting information about flat Earth, and I wanted to actually talk to one of the specialists, the DIRF or David Weiss, and that chat was set up by my friend Berserker Bear, but I managed to skip that possibility, and so maybe we'll do it in some certain other time. Well, I got prepared actually for that chat. I got a bunch of questions for for that specialist David Weiss. So according to his previous chats, it didn't look very informative because he was, kind of repeating each stuff again and again and again and again. So that is okay to informing people, but we have more advanced level, right? Like my cats, they're probably so advanced that they can steal food in a couple of seconds from me. I try to be as advanced and research information more deeply. And so I prepared some questions. Maybe at some certain point we're gonna do this chat, and all these questions are stored in some safe place. They will never be forgotten. Let's see. Tunnels everywhere. Paul Cook. Yeah, I know you. You're some type of channel dude. Berserker said you thought I'm very mean and uh, how do you say, rude? Yeah, maybe. Well, I'm not doing chats with him anymore actually because he thinks I'm childish and what else. So we can talk about any topic, but I don't actually like people who talk shit behind the back. That's what I don't like. But I can forgive for everything if you say, "Excuse me, I was wrong." Yeah, I'm not so mean. Yeah, if you have any questions, we can schedule a chat with you or anybody who is thinking about melted buildings is real or anything like that. All this crap theories, we can debunk it. Already an hour of our chat today, guys. Let's have some more questions. What do you think about melted brick theory? There's a lot of rocks that look like buildings, like the one in China. What do you think about melted brick theory? What I think about melted brick, I actually showed a video where, let me find it first. Well, I have like melted buildings versus mud flood, something, couple of videos like that, and I show melted bricks how they actually look. Um, they don't look like mountains for sure. Let me try to find that video first. Shit, so many videos. Okay, I found it. Let's see. Tunnels everywhere, tunnels everywhere. I have to hide this question. Let's see. Share screen. That's this very fort. You probably seen pictures of melted bricks if you actually was seeking for them. It's located near St. Petersburg. It looks like this. Right now it's located very close to that circle road that they actually built recently. And it has a bunch of those facilities there, as you can see from this aerial view. Looking like Starford part or something, but not really. Well, if you go inside, let me just keep that part. You will find that some of those facilities are not affected by anything. They look perfect like this. Kind of perfect, right? And some of them look like this, where you see those marks of something burning up and falling apart. So heating makes something expand, and when it cools down, it can crack, and like those bricks did, and those granite foundation rocks also did. Let's like go further inside. Yeah. So if you go inside of some of those facilities, you find out that these buildings inside are different from those safe facilities. They have melted bricks. Those melted bricks look black type of color. But if you actually zoom in on those, you'll find them shiny and vitrified. But some on the same fort, some walls are still okay. So that means that actually it was not some discharge event or something. It was a real fire or explosion. And I also found the video of that fire in the 70s, and so I think the case is closed. This video was actually represented by John. This footage, not video, footage was somehow presented by John Levy, and he was saying that look how melted bricks look like. But I found that that case was actually not in the 19th century, not in the 18th century. It was in the 20th century, in the 70s. Okay, my cats are getting crazy. And look at this vitrified bricks. Okay, so this is how they look. Does it look anything uh, similar to those hills and rocks that melted buildings followers present as evidence? No, nothing vitrified. Even in that video, I found melted rocks, and I'm going to show it to you right now. There's a well-known case of Scottish so-called castles, and there's a guy who made this experience, and he created all this, collected all this information. So I'm not gonna just, um, skip this stuff. So this is how melted stuff looks like. And he also has formulas. All this stuff is presented in a net video. It's called Melted Buildings versus Mud Flood. So go ahead there and you find out that melted rocks, melted buildings, they all look different, and so on. So this stuff is here, and I have some more videos like this also on my channel. Okay. Where did the water go after the Great Flood? Any theories? Anyone? Not sure. It was like what they tell us. Actually, I can say it. What it could be a great flood for certain area, like we had a great California flood. It was very huge flooding, very huge flood. Find out about it. Okay. North Pole is the old Asia now, frozen alongside the center of world, Jerusalem, Emerald City. Well, some people even think that Jerusalem isn't in Britain. Some people think Jerusalem is near St. Petersburg in Russia. Some people think Jerusalem is near Moscow. There's so many theories about that, and for sure, if we go to current city, which is called Jerusalem, you find out that they have so many constructions which are unexplainable, also unexplainable, and as big and as enormous blocks as we have in Baalbek are located there, and nobody can explain how they built it. So, okay. So no more talk with bushwhacking buffalo. Too bad. Well, he chose this path. I don't know what did piss him off in my critics. Let's face Fomenko thinks Fomenko thinks a bunch of things actually, because he's actually learning the edited documents and puts all this data into the computers. First of all, he did that, and I had a video about Fomenko, and it probably step by step describes where that theory came from, where did he learn that all this stuff, where did he stole that research information, first of all, and how did he split from his group and started making money on that research after all. So that is Fomenko. For sure, he was great in waking people up, and we have to praise that so many people can do that again. But when he became a crazy printer of books, like 90 books, I don't know, actually, is this making money or not? Let's see. Architecture was amazing, sublime, and divine. Yes, this is why it's called, classical, probably because it's the standard, and some people think that it's just ordinary facilities for those inhabitants, and so any person could live in those amazing buildings with huge ceilings and so on. But I highly doubt that. I think still people were segregated. Some were casted higher. That's why we have this term caste, which is um, called in India. It's called let's say caste. Yeah, in Russia we have casting. In English, you also have casting, and caste is часть also, because C is can be read as che if you add h after it, and so часть, cast, caste is the same word, and it means segregation and splitting of the people in certain groups. In India, we have untouchables, which are not even nobody can even allow to talk to them. I think I'm not actually a big specialist in castes in India, but and we have Brahmans, we have Kshatriyas, and we have family people, and that's pretty much the same that Russians had. So uh, yeah, the difference was is that Russians didn't have untouchables. Those people were still allowed to go anywhere. And this is different that order that we had before. It had so-called self-governance system. What is self-governance system? Self-governance system is when you pick the best, and those best represent you. First, you pick your family best person. Then those family best persons gather and they pick one, I don't know, town representative. And those town representatives gather and pick region representative. And those region representatives gather and pick the best of them. Each time it's the best of them, not the worst of them, but the best of them. And everybody wanted to be the best, right? But on the same side, on the other side, they didn't want to fail in general because they knew that they are worse than somebody and that somebody will do better than them. They sent that person because they were thinking as a united mass, not a divided mass, right? Like we have today. So this is different from the democracy that we have today because in our democracy, who is voting? Everybody, right? It could be alcoholic, it could be junkie, it could be Jerry melted bricks person. I don't know. Could be anyone. Anti-vaxxer, vaxxer, you know, serial killer, uh, hitman, prostitute. I don't know. You name it, right? Alex Jones can do it. So they are not the best people to choose somebody, right? But we let those people choose, and that's the system. And that's how they actually manipulate the vote. They pick in all those, bring in all those hordes of unknown people that actually have nothing to do with your city or your town, which fake the voting or vote for somebody else, right? And they give you that certain representative or city mayor or governor or president, and they say he won because they voting for him. Who are they? You don't know those people, right? And in self-governance system, you knew everybody who was voting, and you were sure, you damn sure that they voted for the best person. Okay, well, that system failed eventually. Now we have what we have. I can't believe mainstream historians have an excuse why cathedrals all around the world share very similar architecture made by slaves and common workers using copper chisels. Yeah, on my second channel, I had a video called Pyramids Calculations Issues. Check it out, called Matflood Advanced Research. You can find that link on pyramids calculations issues. And I'm talking about issues with calculation, including the questions that you put up with. Okay. Well, anyways, thanks for everybody to come. Let's hope I have some more time, maybe next Friday or Friday after next, to make more videos. I've actually set up a new channel called Yellow Badge where I'm going to be talking about geopolitics, and I now actually made a Telegram channel which is going to be a kick-ass channel because I'm going to be talking about all all the stuff without censorship at all. Without censorship. You listen to me, and that's gonna be a whole different Philip Bergin, believe me. Thanks a lot for everybody to come, and see you guys later.